Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we're talking about breathwork. Again, we had Erwan Licor in episode 198 talking about the relationship of holding your breath for a long time and all kinds of other parts of your life. Today, we're looking at breath from a different angle. We have Alessandra here to talk about money breathwork, the techniques she's developed are in helping you become more aware of your breath, but also how that relates to money, which applies to your personal life, to your business, to past money traumas. And we're just going to dive right in. Alessandra, welcome to Redbeard Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really excited because I've done just a little bit of breathwork in my life, and it's always been fascinating. And then in my sports pursuits, from mountain climbing to the shooting sports to sword fighting, even jiu-jitsu, the mastery of breath has always been a curious challenge. I was in my jiu-jitsu class. I went for a whole couple months right before the pandemic got started and then didn't continue. And one day the sensei comes over. I know they're not called senseis, but whatever. And he says, you should breathe. Because apparently I wasn't breathing while trying to do some particular thing in jiu-jitsu. And I had to laugh, also, frown. But I had to laugh because I've been telling that when I was doing the sword fighting thing, because I did that for a decade, and I tell the new people, you should breathe. And I had this fantasy that, because I know how to breathe when climbing mountains or when sword fighting, of course I will know how to breathe when doing jiu-jitsu. Turns out, no, I was the whitest of white belts and still am. And understanding you should breathe is a completely novel concept. So I'd love to hear from you a bit about what is that, even becoming aware of how your breathing is impacting everything else. How did you even become aware of yourself?
So the type of breath work that I use is what I call like transformational breath work. So it's not just being aware of your breath, it's actually using your breath to dive into your subconscious, unconscious, your body, and kind of work your way up from there. So much of what we do in our life, in our business, are based on, programs, like our codes, our programs, our belief systems, our core values, the things that we have been taught throughout our whole lives, right? And they're in our system, and that's where our thoughts come from. That's where our beliefs come from. That's where our actions, that's where who we are comes from. And a lot of the times we're on autopilot to these things, right? We move through life. Obviously we'll talk about money and our money programs and beliefs and core beliefs that, are coded when we're younger and even ancestral and a lot deeper than that. But we go through life in this kind of, autopilot way. And I know that you've probably talked a lot about mindset work on your podcast, which, I believe mindset work, and I'm a therapist. My background is a therapist, and I did a lot of mindset work. And I always felt like something was missing. And I felt like mindset work really just scratched the surface. And so what breath does, what actually this transformational type of breathing, which is a sustained deep breath. So there's multiple different patterns that people use. I tend to use one specific pattern. But what you do is when you sustain that breath, it literally drops you into this like other world, right? Where you are now exposed to all the things that you didn't see before. Right. So the thoughts, the beliefs, the experiences. Oh my gosh, I didn't remember that experience happened. And wow, is that where that belief comes from? Or, these kinds of things. And what the breath does is it gets you out of your mind and into your body where all this stuff lives. That's where it lives. And so much of what we are typically doing in, like even in therapy, right? I'm a big fan of therapy because I was a therapist, and mindset work as a mindset coach and a business coach. And I've done all these things. All of that literally just scratches the surface.
Well, to thinking instead of doing.
Yes, exactly.
That gets in the way especially for people. A lot of entrepreneurs pride ourselves on our intellect, which is all well and dandy, but it gets us in trouble sometimes because we're not embodied.
Yes, 100%. Exactly. And so when we try to, let's use a money belief, when we try to think differently about a money, like say, like it's hard to make money. Let's just say that random money belief. Like it's hard. I have to work really hard to make money. And in order to make more money, I need to work harder, right? That is a thought that if we are like, okay, I need to think, oh no, it's so easy to make money, right? That would be the opposite thought that we're like, okay, just think that thing. It's like we're fighting ourselves when we try to think that because our bodies are like, no, it's not. That's not what we believe, right? Because of these things like money traumas or money beliefs from our parents or, our grandparents and how hard it was for them and they had to hustle and, whatever that is, like whatever is encoded in us is going to fight whatever you're trying to like surface level change.
Yeah, I have a story for you. I once did Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent sitting meditation.
Mm.
And there's no eye contact, there's no touching other people, it's a vegan diet. You're just sitting there all day long for all 10 days. And there's a teacher tells you stuff occasionally on a TV, a very curious experience. And I quit my first time through, halfway through, lots of pain. They said don't take any drugs. So I looked really bad, hay fever, complete mess. But I tried again later and I tried to quit again halfway through. And I was talking to the teacher. The only person you can talk to is the teacher, and really only if you're trying to leave. They try to talk you out of it. That's their whole job.
Sure.
And this guy says to me, because I had searing back pain from sitting for hours and hours and days on end. And he says, sometimes physical pain is just embodied emotional pain.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, whatever, screw you, buddy. And he said, I didn't say that, I'm pretty sure. I hope not. And he said, what happens if you stop fighting the pain? And that was an interesting concept. And I figured, well, I'll try one more session. And I sat down, and about 10 minutes in or so, the fire showed back up, going up and down my spine, and it hurt as much as it ever had. But instead of trying to resist this suffering, I said to myself, hello, pain, my old friend, just internally, well, not moving a single muscle in my body other than breathing. And that moment of welcoming pain as a friend, it didn't hurt any less. I was still miserable the next 5 days. Terrible experience. Never go. I'm like 2/3 joking. But that reframe of this pain is actually you're having a conversation with your emotional self was a very interesting and very impressionable thing. And this was before I started my business. This was when I was 25 or so. And that idea of, yeah, there's suffering, but just because you're in pain doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah. And it's so much of what I do with breath work. Like I actually have you talk to your body. Like, we were just doing a breath work today on scarcity and transcending scarcity and moving into abundance. And I was asking, as I was facilitating the breath work, asking your body, where does scarcity live? Is there any tightness or tension? Do you have like a pit in your stomach or a pit in your heart or, those feelings of where scarcity actually lives? Sometimes I'll have, like when I'm doing a breath work, I'll have like pain in my like solar plexus, which is where, a lot of money stuff happens in my hips. And as I breathe, I can release that. And so much of what we are holding, there's a book called The Emotion Code. Have you heard of it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's all about trapped emotions in our bodies and how that can cause physical pain, physical ailments, obviously, holding you back in life and all the things, right?
Alessandra, why are entrepreneurs so bad at being embodied?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Normal people don't have these problems, right? Aren't normal people happy and we're the tortured ones?
Well,
Is that how it works? Is that science?
I have opinions about that. Because I've actually had this conversation with my husband where I'm like, why can't I just be normal? Because entrepreneurs have big dreams and we have like big dreams and big desires and, want more. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people are okay to settle. A lot of people are okay. Like when I talk about this stuff with like just some of my friends who aren't into personal development, they're like, oh, that's cool. But they have no desire to like try it or go deeper, right? Versus like my entrepreneurial friends are like, yeah, that sounds amazing.
More.
Give me more.
Feed me.
And yeah, you're right. Sometimes it is a lot harder to deal with this. Like when I was a therapist, I had a private practice and I grew it really, really fast, like much faster than anyone else I was in a group practice and I was fully booked really, really fast. And I was fine. I could have coasted like that forever, which was like very scary to me. I remember coming home to my husband and I was like, is this what it's going to be like forever? Like, I'm just going to go to work the same time or, yeah. And I still like quote unquote had my own business because I was getting clients and it was like my own hours, but I never really dealt with all the stuff that, and I know a lot of therapists do, but I was kind of an anomaly in that way. But as I moved into the online space, as I, started seeing like way more people doing the thing, oh, there's all these different options. I actually had to start doing the deeper work because I was putting myself out in bigger ways. When I was in my little town of like, come see me, I'm the therapist for kids, everyone was like, oh, you're the therapist for kids? Sure, let's everyone send them to you. Right. Versus like now I'm in the big wide internet and I could have a client in Barcelona and a client in Australia and a client in Africa. Like I could have people all over the place. It really brought up all my stuff. And I was like, whoa, I have a lot of stuff that I need to heal and I need to look at. And so for me, my story is, as a therapist and as like a big into mindset work, this is the quote I say, and it's probably triggering for some people. What I said, I mindseted my way to mediocrity, right? Like I had 6-figure business. And to me, that felt mediocre. And I know that's not for everybody. Everyone, there's some people that have those, dreams of that being that. For me, I knew I was meant for something bigger. And I was in this huge roller coaster. Like I would hit 6 figures and then the next year it would be like 60K. And then I would hit 6 figures again and then it would go down again. And I was like, what is going on? I would do all the money mindset stuff. I would be in my journal. I would be reading all the books. I would be listening to the podcast. I'd be doing meditation, all the things. And I kept in this roller coaster. And about a year ago, once again, I had a really great year. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, at the end of the month. And I was like, this is ridiculous. How is this happening? And of course we chose entrepreneurship over and over and over again because we want this lifestyle. We want, the freedom that, we're a very intentional family. We now have 4 kids. And so a regular quote unquote life was not for us. And so we had to like go through the pain, right? But all of a sudden, here I was again, and I was like, I am not okay with this anymore. I have to do something different. I'm not going to read the money. Like clearly, there's a money issue here, and I can go into like what my money issues were.
Let's hold on to that idea. You said clearly there's a money issue here.
Yeah.
That tells me that you are perceiving the problem as being within you as opposed to outside of you.
Yeah.
When/where did you learn that if you're having money problems, the problem is inside of you instead of outside of you?
Meaning like I just needed another strategy or something like that.
Well, for a lot of people, if you lose your job and then you're looking for a job, that's just sort of it's just how life is.
Yeah.
But it sounds for you that if you aren't getting what you want, it's a you problem. It's not the world's problem. It's the whole locus of control thing. And I'm curious, were you always like that, or was there a time where you were more external locus of control, and then something happened, a switch flipped inside you where you became internal locus of control, to where now if you're like, oh, I can't pay my rent, I'm the problem, I should change myself in some way instead of the world should change for me?
Yeah. I mean, I imagine I've always been like that in one way, shape, or form. I was a collegiate athlete. And so I always took control of, my fitness or my success or anything, to do with that as a young kid. And so I guess that would easily translate into that. But I do see for others, or like for me, up until that point, this is a good example. Up until that point, I would constantly look for like another strategy. Like clearly, I'm not doing something right, right? I need something else. I need to be on Instagram, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I need to have a funnel, or I need to do these things, right? And I had done all that, right? And I had learned all of it and I had executed it and it gave me success. And then the success waned, right? It would go away. All of a sudden, all my clients would be done and they'd be like, great, we're great. Like, we don't need to resign, right? And which is great for them because they had great success and everything. But for me, I was like, I don't need another strategy because I've kind of done all the strategies and I am really, really good at strategy and I really understand it. So something else is happening here. It's not just like a do more situation. It's like something in me is not able to hold. For me, it was holding success. So as I grew my business, here I am at the top. And there was also a misalignment with what I was doing. Obviously, now what I'm doing now is very different. Well, it's not very different. It's using strategy with breath work. For me, it was just, I had to, I look inside and say, I'm doing the things that get people success, right? Like especially in entrepreneurship, like you see success, you see the people that are having success in their funnels or their products or course launches or whatever it is. And then I would do that and I would have the success and then it would go. And so I was like, well, why can't I hold it? And so that is a lot of the work that I do with money, is allowing not only to receive it, to like opening your ability to receive and feel worthy of receiving and deserving of receiving, but also to be able to feel safe in expansion and like growth and success, to like have the money and have the clients and be okay, right? And not do a self-sabotage sort of situation, you know?
How weird are your kids going to be when they're in their late teens or early 20s and they come to the realization that other people's parents did not talk about money like their parents?
Right?
I remember the moment when it was for me. It was my freshman year of college, spring term, and I was sitting in the dorm chatting with a bunch of friends around financing in college, and I asked one of my dorm mates, "Oh, how much money, how much loans did you get?" And another one of our dorm mates blew up at me because after we talked about it more, she had asked her dad how much money he made a single time, and based on his reaction, she never asked again.
Mm.
And asking someone about how much money they either made or how much money they're borrowing, to her mind, would just brought up so much anger, which was quite shocking. Very pleasant person. And I grew up in a two business owner family where we discussed balance sheets at the dinner table since before I can remember.
Yep.
And I didn't understand until that moment. I was 19 before I got it. Like, oh, I'm not a little bit different. I actually have like a less than 1% common experience, but I didn't get it. So how screwed up are your kids going to be? Because if someone says, I can't afford to buy this car, they say, well, how's your breathing? And they're like, wait, what?
Exactly. Are you doing money breath work yet? I love it. I love it. You know, my kids are 7, 5, 3, and I have a newborn.
Wow.
They breathe with me. They do breath work with me.
Mm.
And I talk about like, being a money magnet and opening ourselves up to receiving and like allowing it to come in. Like I'm already teaching my 7-year-old like entrepreneurship stuff, right?
That's great.
And so, I actually have a really funny story, very brief. I had a friend who was talking about wanting to move somewhere and saying, "Oh gosh, it's really expensive." And I said, "Well, just make more money." And she goes, "I'm trying not to work as much, like let alone work more." I happened to be holding the book, We Should All Be Millionaires. And I was like, look at the book I'm reading right now. But it is so not common to have these mindsets that we do have. And it might alienate them. It also it's going to make them leaders,
Beautiful.
and being able to teach their friends and teach their friends of friends and families. I really believe like the work that I'm doing is, me and with my kids, and then the ripple effect, right? And my clients' kids and everyone around us, we're starting the ripple effect of normalizing talking about money and talking about, what's going on with us, and receiving money and making more money and what that gets to look like, and doing it all in a really non-taboo way, right? I even had like fears about naming my thing Money Breathwork, because oh my gosh, are people gonna think I'm all about money? Or all my stuff came up, right? And every once in a while it still comes up. I'm like, oh my gosh.
When it comes to the question of what money is, which we have to do another episode talking about money trauma and the nature of what money is. For now, the website is moneybreathwork.com, spelled just like it sounds. Alessandra, where can people find you on social media?
Instagram, Alessandra Caprice, and Facebook, Alessandra Caprice as well. And I have a Facebook group called Big Money Months.
Wonderful. Alessandra, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.